Destiny Media, as well as StreetLevelAmerica.com, USAHeartbeat.com. We're also on the SGM Alabama network and the Freedom Network up in New Jersey. So, Pastor, salute to all those listening coast to coast and in Mexico and Canada. Appreciate all those listening and being a part of the show today. Boy, excuse me, boy, do we have a lot to cover. There's a lot happening. I'm just, I just, there's so much going on. One is, I reported the other day, and some others, of course, you're hearing, Miss USA stepped down for mental reasons. The day later, the teen Miss USA now has stepped down for mental reasons. These two ladies stepping down within 48 hours of each other has now caused for an investigation that there might be some bullying and other things behind the scenes that has been kind of covered up over the little bit of time here. So we'll talk about that. Biden is denying that the inflation is his fault. Got a couple of quotes there, but we also have a reminder quote on the border from former President Obama. So it's going to be interesting to see what he said then and what they're practicing now. One is the House Democrats vote unanimously to give illegal aliens representation in Congress and the Electoral College. Interesting. Also, I'll be talking to you. Marjorie Taylor Greene actually brought to a vote to oust Speaker Johnson, and as we could have all told her, it failed. She is now looking more like a wackadoodle, overzealous conservative that can't come to reason. I'm just going to say this. I mean, Georgia's right across the line here, so there might be some Georgia person that gets real mad at me, but Marjorie Taylor Greene has got a lot of good things, but the thing she definitely has anger issues. She needs to chill, okay? We're 5 months away from a presidential election. Going after Speaker Johnson, all you're doing, personally, I think it's for selfish clickbait, okay? I'm not agreeing with everything he's done, but the last thing you need is a speaker change 5 months before the election. You may agree with me. You may agree with the little general, but I just think she needs to chill, and somebody in her orbit needs to tell her, "Hey, calm down." Because when she's mad, I mentioned it the other day, she's like a Clydesdale in those high heels, buddy. She's got a pissed walk. When she walks, she makes some noise, click clock, and I just think she needs to chill it out. She's got so many good qualities. She's allowing this to taint her, in my opinion. Pfizer to settle a big lawsuit. Evidently, there's problems in big pharma land. And I'm going to bring to you 3 different articles where Chris Como, formerly with CNN, is now coming out about various things. And one thing he admitted, he, in the closet, took, if you will, ivermectin through the whole pandemic. While he condemned others and condemned the drug as horseworming, here he was, a lip-lock liberal to the far left, secretly taking ivermectin to protect himself. He's also claiming that he got some damage physically from the vaccination. So it's interesting to see what will happen. Now, I will say this. Since he's been out from under the CNN guard, and since his brother's no longer governor and he doesn't have to worry about backlash, I think Chris Cuomo's making a lot more sense now. Now, I've heard this said by some folks, hey, Macil, don't you think these Democrats are just leaning more to the middle and a little bit right because they'll get audience increase? Possibly. But you've got to admit, I think Bill Maher, some folks that are known for going far progressive to the left, have come back around on a lot of issues. One being pharmaceuticals, the other being the Palestinian-Israeli conflicts, and American pride. And I will tell you this, the one Democrat I think that started the whole movement sliding back towards some patriotism, I will give him the pastor salute today, even though it's going to make some patriots mad. Pastor salute to the mayor of New York. I've got the clip. I'll play you again. Mayor Adams, when he came out and said, very publicly and very sternly, they're trying to radicalize our youth. He also talked about this country only has one flag, and there should only be one flag that represents citizens of this country. Those two statements, I mean, those hit home into a lot of folks. And I said yesterday to Maria Wagner, Moms for America, she's our mama bear that comes on every Wednesday. And I said, you mark this down. I bet you, if I was a betting guy, but I'm a pastor, I can't bet, he's in the 2028 consideration for the Democrat, because right now, Joe Biden is going to make the Democrats look so foolish. So who's going to be there next? And I've thought about this because, you know, I love to think the what ifs, and I'm a strategist. I love to play chess. The Democrats don't have any rising star. Look what they did. They ruined their opportunity with Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard was their rising star. Before AOC, it was Tulsi Gabbard, an attractive military officer from Hawaii. She was in the progressive camp. She was a Bernie Sanders supporter. And if you remember, but she had something that they don't have. She has a thing called integrity. You may not agree with all that Tulsi Gabbard stands for. She may lean left, but one thing that young lady, I can call her young, she's younger than me. Tulsi Gabbard has integrity, because when they stole the nomination from Bernie Sanders and gave it to Hillary, she came out and said so. Not only did she say so, she resigned as the VP of the Democratic Party there, and she also stepped down as a superdelegate. Not only that, when Donald Trump won, he invited all Republicans, Democrats, to come and meet with him one-on-one at Trump Tower. He wanted to have a one-on-one with anyone that would come, as he tried to make sure his transition for his first term was going to be a good one. The only Democrat that went to Trump Towers was Tulsi Gabbard. So whether you like it or not, Tulsi Gabbard has got, in my opinion, a very good level of integrity. Now, she's walked away from the Democratic Party, and I didn't mean to linger too long on this point, but thinking about who could be the next Democratic person in 2028, they've ruined it with Tulsi. And I'm going to come off. I think Kennedy just shot himself in the foot. He just came out and said he's in favor of full-term abortion. That's not going to fly with the middle of the country. So I think that's too strong of an issue. He's going to get a lot of applause from the far left, but you can't win with the far left. You've got to have the middle. And most folks in the middle do not see full-term abortion as nothing but murder. All abortion, in my opinion, is murder. I'm to the far right. But if you're going to be running for office in the Democratic land especially, so Kennedy, I think, just shot himself in the foot. So coming up in 2028, my thinking is, right now, if you had to pick today, I think Mayor Adams from New York is putting himself in a pretty good position. I think he's more likable. The governor from California, not so much. The only thing he's known for is that he used to be married to Gil Ford that's dating Don Jr. I mean, that's a weird thing when you think about it. Anyway, Mayor Adams, I think, is going to be the guy. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Love to hear back from any of you listeners if you got a thought on that. Also, Biden regime steps up persecution of January 6 protesters. We'll talk about this. Ahead of Trump's return, now there's over 1,400 arrests and counting, and 5 suicides. You may have heard I mentioned on the show a gentleman just got indicted a few weeks ago and decided to take his own life. He was 55. This is very sad, and it's very, to me, I don't understand how in the world they can just keep doing this, and why Congress doesn't do anything. I don't. That's where I understand the frustration Marjorie Taylor Greene has with Speaker Johnson on some stuff. It's just right now. I just don't think the time to be trying to oust him. That's just me. I could be wrong. Well, as I mentioned, here is an update on what's going on with the beauty pageant world. Check it out.
The Miss USA organization is facing its second major resignation this week. Miss Teen USA, who hails from New Jersey, is also giving back her crown just 2 days after Miss USA announced she's stepping down. The resignations are raising questions about how the organization is being run and allegations of a toxic environment. ABC's Andrew Dimbert has more.
New Jersey!
After only 7 months, Miss Teen USA 2023 is relinquishing her crown. 17-year-old Uma Sofia Servistava stepping away from the role, saying, "I find that my personal values no longer fully align with the direction of the organization." The 11th grader announcing she'll focus instead on her advocacy for education and acceptance.
I didn't always feel accepted, which is why I wrote my children's book, The White Jaguar, and I was able to make it multilingual to represent my cultures. And I want to share the message to empower people to embrace what makes them unique.
Her announcement comes just 2 days after Miss USA, Noelia Voigt, gave up her crown, citing her mental health. Voigt releasing a statement on Instagram, her eagle-eyed followers spotting a hidden message. The first letters of each sentence spells, "I am silenced." Voigt's former social media director spoke out on Good Morning America, describing a toxic environment at the Miss USA organization, which oversees both Miss USA and Miss Teen USA.
It was a series of aggressive behaviors towards the title holders and also the employees.
The Miss USA organization calls the accusations false, saying Miss USA is committed to fostering a safe, inclusive, and supportive environment. As for the departing Miss Teen USA, she did not elaborate on her claims about the organization's values. Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
So, as you hear that, two ladies stepping down. I mean, when one steps down, claims it's mental health, but doesn't say a lot, you kind of go, well, okay. But then 2 days later, the Miss Teen said, I don't agree with the values. And then, as you heard in the report, when you go back and look at Miss USA, the first resignation, the first letter of all of her sentences spelled out, I am silenced. You probably have to sign these NDA, non-disclosure agreements. It's like anything else. Just like if you win American Idol, you win any of these contests, you have to sign these agreements. I remember Kelly Clarkson saying that when she won American Idol, she said it was very, looking back, she almost regrets because they made her, they owned her for 4 years. She had to be in movies she didn't want to be in, nothing bad, but she just said they controlled her life. And I'll bet you that's what happens, and that could mess with your psyche. I'll tell you a woman that I'm amazed at and I'm praying for is Caitlin Clark. Can you imagine all the pressure that young lady's under, stepping out of college and right into the WNBA? She's not even got much of a break. She's been on every talk show, every sports show. She's got the pressure of the world. She's got a Nike shoe coming out. And if she trips one time over some bubble gum, there's going to be media onslaught. Just think about that. These beauty pageant people, these athletes, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. And so I can understand possibly why they might say, hey, this is just a little much. But as I pulled up this article, let's see. Yeah, Miss Teen USA steps down days after Miss USA's resignation. Now, this is CNN. I want to hear what maybe the left says. Miss Teen USA resigned Wednesday, sending further shockwaves through the pageant community, just days after Miss USA said she would relinquish her crown. In an Instagram post Wednesday, Miss Teen USA said her personal values no longer fully aligned with the direction of the organization. That's a little more accusatory. When Miss USA stepped down, she said for mental health reason, but in May, the month of mental health, does that sound a little coinky-dinks now that all this is kind of coming together? So she says in May, I'm having mental health issues, the month for mental health awareness. And then the younger Miss Teen USA says she's stepping down for personal values no longer align with the direction of the organization. Sounds like she saw behind the curtain and saw the wizards not all he's cracked up to be, right, Dorothy? Click your heels and go home, young lady. I don't blame you. Well, after months of grappling with this decision, I have made the choice to resign from the title of Miss Teen USA 2023. And the statement on her personal account, she's put it on her social media. The high school teen from New Jersey won the pageant back in September and had expressed her pride at being the first Mexican Indian American to hold the role. I look forward to the rest of the year as I finished 11th grade. I mean, that's a lot of, think about it. You're in high school and you win this title, shabam, that's got to be unreal. So prayers for both these ladies, and maybe cut them a little slack next time you want to be a little derogatory towards someone that goes through these pageants. I was a youth pastor and had a young lady that went through all this rigmarole, and we prayed through her. Her mother was on staff with us. We'll be back after the break.
In destroying our country. Whereas removing this uniparty speaker will not give the speaker's gavel to the Democrats, which would only happen if Republicans actually vote for Hakeem Jeffries. Johnson regularly chooses to ally himself with Democrats. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the office of the Speaker of the House of Representatives
Gentlewoman will suspend.
Resolved that the office of the Speaker of the House of Representatives is hereby declared to be vacant.
Well, that is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is calling for the resignation of Mr. Johnson, Speaker Johnson. And a lot of folks,
did you hear about this?
Whoa.
There's a free 5,800.
Are not very happy with that. And so with that said, sorry about that. Commercials flew up on me. So here is Bobart on the floor. See what Miss Lauren Bobart says. She's another pistol.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to Chairman Biggs for leading on this issue. I rise in support of the Equal Representation Act, which will add a citizenship question to the census and exclude illegal aliens from the apportionment base. It is past time we put America and Americans first. Joe Biden and his regime are shelling out benefits to illegal immigrants like Oprah Winfrey on her show. Everyone gets a vote. Everyone gets recognized, even if you're here illegally. In New York, aliens are receiving $53 million in free prepaid debit cards. In Denver, Colorado, aliens get 6 free months of housing. And now they want to hand them seats in Congress to buy their lifelong allegiance to the Democrat Party. Since Biden took office, we have seen more than 9 million illegal aliens cross our borders, and more than 1.8 million gotaways evade Border Patrol agents. That is larger than the population of 32 states, Mr. Speaker. There are now at least 16.8 million illegal aliens living in the United States, enough to account for roughly 22 seats in the House of Representatives. Including these aliens in the apportionment of congressional districts impacts representation in Congress and undermines the constitutional principle of one person, one vote. Americans deserve to have their voices fully represented, not diluted by illegal aliens. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of this legislation, and I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this bill. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
That was Lauren Bobart, and she is talking about the immigration bill. We'll talk about that later in the show, and it's going to be a heavy issue going into the election, 2024. There's no doubt. There's people on both sides that say this is going to be a huge issue, and I think a lot of people are concerned that it's finding a deaf ear among the progressives and the far left in the media. They think it's it's just fine to do this, and I think that's why you're seeing so many people frustrated. And if I can just be honest, Tulsi Gabbard, who I talked about earlier, she explains why she left the Democratic Party, and I think this is one of the reasons they're so far to the left.
Here, of course, she is a 4-term Democratic congressperson from Hawaii. Now she's here to talk about her new book. It's called For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind.
Today, I want to share something with you that has been on my mind and has been troubling me for quite some time and has now compelled me to take action. I love our country. Our God-given rights of freedom, life, and liberty that are enshrined in our Constitution and Bill of Rights are what inspires me. I took an oath dedicating my life to supporting and defending those freedoms, both in uniform and in public office.
Please welcome Tulsi Gabbard.
I was drawn to the ideals of a big tent, inclusive Democratic Party that stood up for working men and women, that stood up for the little guy.
My fellow Democrats.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party. It's now under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism.
The problem with white people.
Who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms enshrined in our Constitution, who demonize the police, who protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents, and who are hostile to people of faith.
All men and women created by go. You know the thing.
Today's Democratic Party is anti-woman.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
I can't.
And above all, are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war. Today, I'm calling on my fellow common sense, independent-minded Democrats. Join me in leaving the Democratic Party.
That was Tulsi Gabbard, and she has a new book out explaining why she left the Democratic Party. But do you sense the divide in the country? Why all this? So I thought I'm going to go hear what some of the secular views are, and then being a pastor, I want to give you my views and mix it in. But Newsweek put out an article today, religion is being misused to divide America. And I think on the surface you would all say that's true. Do you see that they're using religion? The key word that's been for the last, 20 years, racism. And since I'm a white male, I'm 58, but since I've been in my 40s and up, I kept getting slammed racist. There's times I've actually walked into stores or walked into restaurants. I rode my Harley from here to the Tri-Cities, and I stopped in Knoxville at a restaurant to eat. And there was a black young man that came. He looked at me, he brought water, and then I sat there forever. And finally, a lady came. She goes, "I'm sorry." I said, "Why?" They said, "He refuses to serve you because you're a white male." And I wanted to say, "And you mean he still has a job?" So he got to stand over there and stare at me while I ordered. Now, some of you say, "Why don't you get up and leave?" I said, "Well, I'm going to kill him with kindness." So I ordered my meal, and he stood there and just glared at me through the whole meal. But then also when I left, I took a 20 out, and I waved it. And then him said, "You could have had this," and I handed it to the girl. So, I just don't get intimidated that easy. And I'm very disappointed to tell you those kind of stories. I know say, "Well, you ought to hear all these others." I'm just saying it goes both ways. It goes both ways. There's people on other sides that are very unkind. Savvy? So, with that said, religion, it gets thrown in there. As the intensity of this year's election season continues to grow, so too has the focus in the news. A moment of American invoking the name of God to perpetuate divisions in our country. Some of these Americans go to church and read the Bible. Many of them don't. But all of them understand the unmistakable power of using faith as a cultural wedge to advance a political agenda that harms millions more Americans than it helps. There's so many people that seem to have a view about faith and Christianity, but let me just, for the sake of being transparent here, let me just go ahead and read the rest of this News Week article. Not that I agree with everything. Followers of this political movement that misuse religion have become known as Christian nationalists. If you love God and love country, they're trying to label us as Christian nationalists, as if that's a bad thing. That's the new label. They've gone from you're racist to you're a Christian nationalist. Okay. So, followers of this political movement that uses our faith as a wedge, you remember earlier, is Christian nationalists. For this association with an ideology that vehemently rejects the pluralistic democracy our country aspires to be. Boy, that's a big word salad that says absolutely nothing. The movement's origins are bound up with white supremacist oppression. There we go. I knew the racist was coming. I knew it was coming. Yeah, the white racist oppression coming back hundreds of years of when slavery was the norm and indigenous were systematically persecuted. I'm just going to bring a fact, Jack, and please try to prove me wrong. Did you know there were actually more white people, Irish slaves sold in the North and South American continent? Did you know there were actually black slave owners? And if you just want to get down stinking honest about it, it was the black folks in Africa that sold their own to the slave traders. Savvy? So there's plenty of blame to go around. You may not like that, but that's just the freaking truth. Today they talk incessantly about abortion and gay people while supporting policies that harm the people Jesus calls us to care about. The poor, the sick, the immigrant, and the incarcerated. Well, you don't know me, but see, our church, we feed hungry people. I go downtown and feed the people on the streets, and we actually help also those that have just been released from prison. And I take clothes and food to those people, so I'm practicing what you're saying I'm not. You've put us all in this big, wide brush you're trying to paint us all. A survey found, and you're always wondering who they survey, but a survey by Newsweek found that people who embrace Christian nationalism are more likely to be anti-immigrant, anti-black, anti-Semitic, and anti-Muslim. They are extremist within a much broader conservative tent with varying degrees of support of their priorities. Not all conservatives are Christian nationalists. They have a quick little explanation there. As a pastor who has dedicated my life to the pursuit of social justice, this is not me, I'm reading another idiot pastor's article here, okay? I'm deeply concerned about the increasing influence Christian nationalists have on American politics today. Well, you know, I'm glad to know that we've got your attention there, sweet cheeks. I'm trying to find who the author of this stupid article is. Bishop William J. Barber. Well, Bishop William, I can emphatically say I don't hardly agree with anything you got to say. Very racist of you to paint me. You've never shook my hand or met me, but because I love God and country, and you're claiming that I'm some kind of a racist person. And don't you get tired of those labels? But the title of his article, Religion is Being Misused to Divide America. Yet he can write a divisive, name-calling, finger-pointing, labeling article like that, and he's supposed to be a beacon or a bastion of healing? I think not. I think not. Let's move on. Bishop idiot. Federal appeals court refuses to dismiss Hunter Biden's gun charges. I don't know if you knew that. Setting up a June trial. He is not going to get off, and I think that'd rather shock the Bidens. But I think a lot of people are saying, are we just going to keep indicting each party's family members? I don't know. It looks like we are. We're going to go to a break here. Here's a news break from Straight Arrow News. I'll be back after the break.
Says the U.S. will not supply certain weapons to Israel should the country launch its major offensive on Rafah. And Democrats and Republicans come together to save the Speaker of the House from being voted out. The Morning Rundown starts now.
From the Straight Arrow News studio, bringing the stories that matter to you from across the United States and around the world. This is the Morning Rundown.
Today it's Thursday, May 9th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Taylor. President Biden making it clear the United States will not supply Israel with certain weapons and artillery shells should the Israeli army launch its long-promised major military operation in Rafah. The president sat down for an interview with CNN Wednesday after the U.S. announced it was withholding a shipment of thousands of bombs to Israel as the rift grows between the two countries over the approach to the war in Gaza. In the interview, Biden acknowledged that U.S. bombs have been used in attacks in Gaza that have killed Palestinian civilians.
Civilians have been killed in Gaza as a consequence of those bombs and other ways in which they go after population centers. And I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah, to deal with the cities, to deal with that problem.
Despite Biden's warning, he said America is not walking away from Israel's security in terms of the country's Iron Dome defense system and the country's ability to defend itself from future attacks. Though the Israeli military moved into Rafah earlier this week, the White House has called it a limited operation. Biden told CNN Israel's current action in Rafah is not over his red line yet. However, he has warned Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that Israel will not get U.S. support if the operation proceeds into populated areas. The Biden administration is expected to propose changes to the asylum system as early as today, amid a record number of migrants being caught crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. According to reports, the proposed rule would allow immigration officials to quickly deport migrants who cross the border illegally and are ineligible for asylum. The migrants targeted under this new rule would be those deemed a national security risk or those who pose a danger to public safety. The timing would see the migrants being barred from asylum and deported within days, perhaps hours, of their arrival. Currently, that process can take years. The proposed rule would still need to be finalized at a later date. Following weeks of threats, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene called for a vote to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson Wednesday over concerns about his leadership. Within minutes, the motion was decisively rejected, with most Republicans joining Democrats in a 359-43 vote. 11 Republicans voted against tabling Greene's resolution. Greene said she was not surprised by the vote and would not say whether she would plan to try to remove Johnson again in the future. Johnson joked with reporters, calling it just another Wednesday on Capitol Hill. The speaker thanked his colleagues for their support and described Greene's efforts to remove him as misguided.
Hopefully, this is the end of the personality politics and the frivolous character assassination that has defined the 118th Congress. It's regrettable. It's not who we are as Americans, and we're better than this.
I think many of us would agree, and I've said before, I hope Marjorie Taylor Greene takes this as a hint to maybe move on to more issues. We've got an election up in just...
Straight Arrow News is the...
And coming up in just a short amount of time, 5 months away. I think there's more important things that we could be getting involved with. That's just my opinion. Well, got so many other things to go to. Let's jump to the some of the big articles here. And I'm not sure if you guys have heard some of this, but Republicans are introducing a bill that would send anti-Israel campus protesters to Gaza for 6 months if found guilty of illegal activity. Now, I don't think it'll pass, but would this not be interesting? I'll repeat it. Republicans introduce a bill that would send anti-Israel campus protesters to Gaza for 6 months if they're found guilty of legal activity. Now, this all sparked, if you guys remember, Elon Musk did a poll on X saying if you fly another country's flag, you take down the American flag and you put up another country's flag, you then should be given a one-way ticket to that country and left there. But it was such a huge response. I think he got 91% agreement. That it sparked over the last several days a lot of people saying the same thing. So now Republicans are introducing this bill that pretty much does that. At least it puts it for 6 months. I guess that means after 6 months, because I think a lot of folks, if you guys remember, there was a push back when all these young ladies were getting radicalized online, and they were going over as freedom fighters over in some of the conflict over in Afghanistan and stuff. And then they were begging to come home. Do you remember that? They spoke bad about America, and all that happened, they found they were just going to be nothing but baby factories. They were being sexually abused, having babies multiple times, and many of them came back, and some never made it back. But the couple I remember seeing when they came back said that when they got there, they thought they had been misled through the online like a lot of predators do, and led them to believe they were going to be a part of a freedom movement. They said, no, you're just going to birth children to help build our army. I don't think a lot of folks realize that. So you put them over there for 6 months, but somehow if you did this, you'd have to somewhat protect them. Representative Andy Ogles, a Republican from Tennessee, introduced a new bill that would send anti-Israel, pro-Hamas campus protesters to Gaza for 6 months if they were found guilty of legal activity. It's about time someone suggested this. It could be a real learning experience for some of these radical students and professional agitators. This bill would get tremendous support from people across the country who are sickened by what's unfolding at our supposed institutions of higher learning. You notice you don't see any of these protests at the trade schools. You notice that? It's only these higher level. And the richer and snottier the campus, the more protest. So what's that tell you? There's an elite level of anti-American anti-Semitism that's been brewing, evidently for quite some time. So we'll see what happens. I doubt it will pass, but just that it's been mentioned, I think sends a message that people are getting a little tired of this, and we could see maybe in the future. I'm going to hit a quick subject here that some folks, I know some are divided on, but it's the January 6th stuff. Everyone's got so many opinions on this. You know, January 6th, Donald Trump and vaccinations were so polarizing. It took a President Biden to take all the crazy stereotype and bring some reality. You know, that's one thing you can say about Joe Biden. Joe Biden has helped unite a lot of folks that once were divided, because now we're finding out the vaccines. And I'm going to bring you an article from Dr. Burke. You know, she said in her book, Dr. Burke, Scarf Lady, remember, who Dr. Fauci, Dr. Burke, and Mike Pence, they stood up there and every day gave us all this lecturing about COVID and stuff. You remember? She said in her book, the virus came to us from China in a box. She said it in her book. And she also said in her book, we lied to Donald Trump. The flatten the curve for 2 weeks, we knew that was a lie, but we knew if we got the president to shut down the economy, shut down everything for 2 weeks, we could then get the 2 years we wanted, which they did. And you shut the country down for 2 years, people lose jobs. But I'm still amazed if you look back. You know, you couldn't go get your hair cut. You couldn't go to the gym, right? And things that would make you feel. You couldn't go to church. But you could go get a lap dance. You could go get an abortion, and the liquor stores were open. Think about it. You're smarter than that. Think about it. Ray Epps breaks federal law, lying to the FBI agents again. In a never before released leak audio, you are the boss. This is an amazing thing. Go to the Gateway Pundit, and it's more of a deep dive. I'm just going to give you the highlights. But the Gateway Pundit obtained more leaked audio of James Ray Epps providing materially false statements during an abnormally friendly interview with the Federal Bureau of Investigations about his role in the campus riots, a crime punishable by up to 8 years in prison. And they have caught him on multiple lies, and they're adding up. Joined by his attorney, John Bislock, a former FBI agent, and his wife, Robin Epps, during a voluntary March 3, 2021 interview, Epps assured the feds, while laughing and cracking jokes, that he only traveled from Arizona to Washington, D.C. to protect his son, James Ray Epps Jr., and tried to de-escalate a raging crowd amid terror attacks. Well, they've got video evidence the night before of him going around and saying, we've got to rush the Capitol. We've got to rush the Capitol. And standing right next to him is John Sullivan, who is an Antifa leader. Both Ray Epps and John Sullivan, who is the Antifa leader, were both wearing Trump hats, Trump scarves. It was overkill, too much Trump stuff on. They were trying too hard to blend in. Well, the people around them were chanting, "Fed, Fed, Fed." You've probably seen the video. So there's another video of January 6th of Ray Epps waving people into the Capitol, saying we've got to go into the Capitol. So it's obvious he lied in this statement to the FBI. Despite evidence proving Epps only sought to encourage people to break into the building, he stuck to his alibi in the second leaked encounter with the Bureau. Lying is generally not a crime, but it depends on who you're speaking to. Under 18 USC 1001, making a false statement to a government agent is a felony, especially when it's related to domestic terrorism. Continuing to violate federal law during the interview, FBI, in addition to ostensibly and admittedly being a ringleader who orchestrated a Capitol riot, and he's caught on video inciting and pointing and rallying people. Epps claimed Baked Alaska, who served 60 days in prison for protesting at the Capitol, was to blame for inciting a ruckus. He became supposedly a whistleblower, throwing other people under the bus. Okay? For at least an hour on camera, Epp, at one of the main culprits, sowing contention among young demonstrators. My son and his friend were walking around, and they found a Trump group, and they were challenged, and he called me, and he was quite concerned. Some of them were trying to antagonize the police department. Epps said, describing the night before the riot, I tried to talk these guys out of it. I tried to talk them off the edge, which is not what was on video. It's him telling them they need to charge the Capitol. So you can go check this out. It's a lot of he said, she said, but there's video evidence of Ray Epps. There's the one that I told you about, and them chanting "Fed, Fed," and it's interesting. He's got this big Trump red hat. It's not "Make America Great." It's a little bit different looking hat, and you got to wonder where he got it. I've never seen one like it. So there's Trump hat liar, Mr. Ray Epps. And it's brought the January 6th thing back into the eyes of the people. Well, then the Justice Texas cop fired for attending the January 6th protest. There was a Texas lady who was fired just for attending January 6th. I don't know if you remember. The Democrats did a great job of shaming and blaming. If you even went, people were losing their jobs, etc. Well, here's a lady. She lost her job. Well, just recently, she released got a $400,000 settlement for wrongful termination, and rightfully so. You shouldn't be able to fire someone for exercising their constitutional right, especially if that was her vacation time, and she wasn't breaking any laws. So a Texas deputy who was fired from her job for attending the January 6th protest will receive a whopping settlement after she sued the county for wrongful termination. According to the Fort Worth Star Telegram, former Bay County Lieutenant Roxanne Matthew was a passionate supporter of Donald Trump and traveled to Washington to attend the Stop the Steal protest. She uploaded photos of the event to her social media as protesters entered the Capitol building. Although she did not enter the building herself, after returning to San Antonio, the sheriff launched an investigation into her conduct and eventually fired her from her role she held for 9 years. It later emerged that he had campaigned for Joe Biden during the 2020 presidential election. So a sheriff, using his biased political view, fired her just for going, even though she never went into the Capitol. And that's the divide that we had back in 2020. I think as we're coming around to 2024, Biden's doing some things that help us out. But real quick again on this January 6th issue, Biden regime steps up persecution of January 6th protesters ahead of the Trump return. Over 1,400 now have been arrested, and more getting arrested. And there's been 5 suicides so far. This Department of Justice has been more worried about arresting American citizens exercising their constitutional right then if they went after some of these other issues like they do this, the country would be at peace probably right now. The Biden regime is stepping up its relentless campaign of persecution, against those who attended the January 6th protest, arresting people at double the rate they have over the past 3 years. So they're actually trying to get more people arrested before Biden's out of office, I guess. The Epoch Times reports that according to the Department of Justice monthly update, 1,424 people have been arrested in connection with the attendance on that day. Nearly 1,425 have been arrested on the January 6 charges, with 2024 arrests running at almost double the rate of 2023 and 2022. A U.S. Department of Justice report shows through close of the business day on May 3rd, the FBI arrested 1,424 suspects in 40 months since the breach of violence at the U.S. Capitol. Blah, blah. That includes 159 people who were arrested during the first 4 months of 2024. Nearly double 83 arrests during the same period 2023 and 85 arrests at the same period of 2022. DOJ records show the FBI has made 391 January 6 arrests since May 2023 and 614 arrests since May of 2022. And one of the things they use to track and find if you were there, they use this thing called a ping. If you were in the Capitol with your cell phone, they're claiming that as evidence. So if you ever go to D.C., leave your phone in the hotel room, evidently. Such an acceleration of arrest are a clear sign of Biden regime's determination to arrest and convict as many people as possible before the end of the year, knowing that if Donald Trump returns to the White House, those investigations will be halted and pardons will be issued to some or all of those involved. Last month, the leftist media site Raw Story ran a piece warning that time is running out to arrest all the necessary people before the end of the year. So some of these real far left magazines are encouraging this, they're celebrating this. They're calling it sedition hunters. It's rather disappointing. I don't know your view on January 6th. Everyone's got different takes, but I will just tell you this: if somebody hurts somebody with the intent, that's one thing. But just to be in the Capitol, I just don't think the way they're going after some of these people. The lady that got 6 years for praying, I mean, she didn't touch anybody. That's ridiculous. That is just ridiculous. Well, anyway, how we doing on time? Yeah, we got time for this. The House Democrats vote unanimously to give illegal aliens representation in Congress and the Electoral College. Hello, are you paying attention? Many folks have said that's been Biden's plan all along, is to try to gain loyalty because the MAGA movement, Make America Great, is spreading nationalism across the country. The globalists see that as poison. So what better way to represent your globalist worldview than bringing people from other parts of the globe, savvy, up through the borders, from the south primarily and the north, and that come from different countries that represent other parts of the globe and their allegiances to them. Now listen, America, anyone that comes in legally, I would celebrate. Because if you come in the right way through the port of entry, you sign up, they will let you in the country, they give you some steps to take. But one of the things you do is you kind of go through a little bit of a history lesson of who we are and what you're getting into. It's kind of like our church. You just can't walk the aisle and join our church. We have a new membership class. We want to make sure you understand what you're joining, and we understand who you are. It's a great opportunity to get to know somebody, and that's what. But see, they want to bypass that and just have folks sneak into the country, and you have what they call those getaways on top of who that have been apprehended. So here's we thought this was going to happen, and I predicted that this was a year and a half ago that Joe Biden will do some form of an Abraham Lincolnist Emancipation Proclamation. Just like Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, and I'm glad he did, I could see Biden freeing up a lot of illegal aliens through a stroke of a pen. And you don't think he can do that? Look what they did to Title IX, ladies. Instead of, Title IX had to go through the court system, had to go through all the things you do to take it to the House, to the Senate, had to be agreed upon, and then the president had to sign it into law. Joe Biden, through the Secretary of Education, has gone in and tweaked the Title IX and pretty much defeminized it and masculinized it, brought males into the female sport, completely opposite of what Title IX should be. But he bypassed Congress, Senate, and then the process of making it a law. He took an existing law and just kind of did his own little fix to it. Don't be surprised if he doesn't do the same thing with this. He'll find something on the books and he'll tweak it. Mark my words, he will make sure that they can vote, and he's going to wait. I personally think the Democrats will wait to the 11th hour to do this so that you won't have time to really get the appeals court. But you know what's going on. They've already got the ballots printed. The Democrats already know what's going on, because think of all the shenanigans they've tried. They've tried the legality route, and it's bombing and failing. Trump's winning in the court cases. They're being either dismissed, delayed, or laughed out of court. Okay, that's not working. Keeping him off the ballot, bad move. It didn't work, especially in Colorado, where they claimed he was an insurrectionist. Okay, number one, he's not been charged with insurrection. Number two, he's not been convicted of insurrection. He's not even on trial for insurrection. But they use that term as their excuse to taking him off the ballot in Colorado. That, being so extreme, allowed the Supreme Court to step in and said you're out of bounds. So the Supreme Court overruled the state court and these 7 states that were trying to take him off the ballot. And that's where your Nikki Haley was working. Nikki Haley, before Super Tuesday, was hoping Donald Trump would be off the ballot so she could somehow steal just enough votes so that she could have some power brokerage, if you will, at the GOP convention. Well, when Trump was allowed to stay on the ballots, and he won all the states anyway, and she got that one small victory, and she lost her home state. That showed Nikki, you just, I don't know why her and DeSantis even got into the race. I really don't. They've both made fools of themselves. The good thing is DeSantis is being smart. He's made peace with Trump, and if he's smart, he'll support Trump all the way, because in 2028 he could go back to being the guy. But breaking, the House Democrats unanimous in this, and here we go. House Democrats on Wednesday night, they voted unanimously to give illegal aliens, including Joe Biden's 11 million illegal border crossers, representation in Congress and the Electoral College, meaning they don't have to be a citizen to run for office. Democrats continue to put Americans and American workers behind alien invaders. The House vote was 206 to 202, with 22 representatives and 11 Democrats and 11 Republicans abstaining from the vote. Stephen Miller's report, House Dems just voted unanimously to give illegal representation in Congress and the Electoral College. House seats and Electoral College votes will be added to areas with most illegals, including the Biden illegals, unless Senate passes the bill, Invasion by Design. I'm just letting you digest this. Now, this just happened Wednesday night, which was last night. No one saw this. No one was being announced. None of this was being talked about. Now, again, could this be why Marjorie Taylor Greene's so upset? Speaker Johnson didn't have to bring this to a vote. Savvy? The Speaker of the House gets to pick what's brought before and voted on. Why did Speaker Johnson allow this to be voted on? I think a lot of people are asking questions now. Stephen Miller put, alert. House Dems just voted unanimously to give illegals representation in Congress and the Electoral College. House seats and Electoral College votes will be added to areas with the most illegals, including all Biden illegals, unless the Senate passes the bill, invasion by design. So it was Republicans 206, and Democrats 202. So anyway, we'll see what happens. The language of the H.R. 7109 is as follows, and let me see if I can get the highlights here. To require a citizenship question on the decennial census, to require reporting on certain census statistics, and to modify appropriate representation to be based on United States instead of individuals. Democrats in the Senate will not bring this to a vote, thus giving illegal representation in Congress. The Democrat Party is clearly lawless. It's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out, my friend. But is anybody shocked? I mean, was that a big shockaroo? I don't think so. I think a lot of folks are saying, anyway, I'm never totally super surprised. At the 4 o'clock hour, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on with the Chris Cuomo. He's admitting now to taking ivermectin. He's also has an interview with the Scarf Lady, Deborah Birx, and Pfizer to settle the $10K lawsuit over drug-linked cancer. So we'll talk about that when we in the 4 o'clock hour, and it should be interesting. And Chris Cuomo, as I said before, he's starting to make a little bit of sense, which is rather interesting to me because he's not been that kind of guy, but in the past, at least in my opinion, that's made a lot of sense. As we're going to the break, let's see. Got some news for you here. The CDC's new rules should fetch attention of people being able to bring their dogs into the country. This may, if you're a dog lover, you may not like this one, but this is the CDC's new ruling.
In an effort to prevent the spread of rabies, the CDC is putting new restrictions on dogs coming into the U.S. from other countries. Starting August 1st, all dogs entering the nation must be at least 6 months old and microchipped, while dogs coming from countries where rabies is common must be vaccinated. The new regulations will go into effect after a temporary order from 2021 expires. That order suspended bringing in canines from more than 100 countries where rabies is still a problem. The safeguards use the age of 6 months for a threshold because that's the age dogs can first be vaccinated. Having a microchip under the skin allows officials to scan and verify a rabies vaccination. The microchip also shows the completed CDC import form. CDC regulations haven't been updated since 1956. The change comes as more people travel internationally with pets. There are also many rescue groups and breeders located outside of the U.S. The type of rabies that traditionally spreads in dogs was eliminated in the U.S. through vaccination in the 1970s. Since 2015, only 4 dogs with rabies were identified entering the country. And CDC officials were reportedly seeing an increase in incomplete or fake rabies vaccination certificates. The move doesn't come without criticism. Animal welfare advocate Jennifer Skiff told the Associated Press diplomats and military personnel often have trouble meeting the requirements, forcing them to leave their dogs behind. She called the new rules warrantless and too costly. For more stories like this, download our Straight Arrow News app or go to our website, san.com.
So, dogs crossing the border now. So I don't know if it makes you feel any better. They're going to let people cross, but they put their foot down. They're not going to let many more dogs cross. Any dogs over 6 months of age are now not allowed to cross the border. How in the world they're going to police that one, I have no idea. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see because a lot of people. You're kind of getting fed up like me on seeing the border being such an issue they don't deal with. So I think that's interesting. Brittany Griner gives a harsh warning to Caitlin Clark. This just broke on the news. Let's go check out what this is. Brittany Griner has been known for punching people in the face. She also has the ability to tell you in detail what it's like to be in a Russian prison, because she broke the rules over in Russia, and she was in prison for over 4 months without commissary, meaning she wasn't allowed any products like toiletry items. She grew a full beard. I don't know how that happens with a female, but anyway. The Phoenix Mercury forward recalled the adjustments she had to make in her rookie year. Caitlin Clark is sporting the advertisement phenomenon and the arrival of the former Iowa Hawkeye as the Indiana Fever superstar, sparking all kinds of reactions among those in the media, the fans, but also fellow players. And veteran Brittany Griner issued a stern warning. A stern warning to the rookie: professional basketball is a different world. And in an interview with People magazine for the recent release of the book Coming Home, Griner admitted that the arrival of the 2024 draft class will be a turning point for the WNBA. The hype that Caitlin Clark and some others have right now is amazing for the league. There's a good talent coming in. So that's nice of her to say that. So anyway, I think it's going to be interesting to see the impact that she has. And I've said this before. I can't imagine the pressure that is on Caitlin Clark. She has got so much on her, and if I was her parents, I would just be going, wow, she's handled it well, and they've done a great job as parents. It's 4 o'clock at the top of the hour. This is Macil Duncan and the Patriot Pastor. We are here at the Destiny Media Network, 96.9. And if you're looking for a church home, don't forget Metro Tab on 153. Great church. Dr. Steve Ball is the pastor. Good friend of mine. I encourage you guys to check it out. If you're in the Chattanooga area, check out Metro Tab. And we appreciate Destiny Media being a part of carrying the Macil Duncan radio show. Also, we want to thank USA Heartbeat and Street Level America that has us now in over 30 states, Mexico and Canada, and other countries. And we also want to thank SGM Alabama and the Freedom Network in New Jersey. Pastor, salute to all those that support, not to mention all the platforms that carry the show. Well, members in Congress speak on the House floor. I played this a little earlier, but I thought I'd play again. This is interesting. This is Bobart talking about what we just said a minute ago, a little bit about the immigration process and how members of Congress are, I guess, debating the 22 million illegal immigrants in the United States.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to Chairman Biggs for leading on this issue. I rise in support of the Equal Representation Act, which will add a citizenship question to the census and exclude illegal aliens from the apportionment base. It is past time we put America and Americans first. Joe Biden and his regime are shelling out benefits to illegal immigrants like Oprah Winfrey on her show. Everyone gets a vote. Everyone gets recognized, even if you're here illegally. In New York, aliens are receiving $53 million in free prepaid debit cards. In Denver, Colorado, aliens get 6 free months of housing. And now they want to hand them seats in Congress to buy their lifelong allegiance to the Democrat Party. Since Biden took office, we have seen more than 9 million illegal aliens cross our borders, and more than 1.8 million gotaways evade Border Patrol agents. That is larger than the population of 32 states, Mr. Speaker. There are now at least 16.8 million illegal aliens living in the United States, enough to account for roughly 22 seats in the House of Representatives. Including these aliens in the apportionment of congressional districts impacts representation in Congress and undermines the constitutional principle of one person, one vote. Americans deserve to have their voices fully represented, not diluted by illegal aliens. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of this legislation, and I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this bill. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Maryland's record.
Can you?
So that's Bobart. Now, her and Marjorie Taylor Greene are probably two of the stronger female personalities, and you got Kat and Stefanik and some others up there. A lot of strong women in the GOP up there. So those are some good points. But I don't know if you guys remember this. When Joe Biden was in the presidential debate against Donald Trump, this is what Joe Biden said he would do, and he's pretty much done. See if you guys remember. This is Joe Biden about the border and acting as if Donald Trump was too hard, building a wall and having restrictions.
The Obama-Biden administration deported more than 3 million Americans. My question to you is, if an individual is living in the United States of America without documents and that is his only offense, should that person be deported?
No. Depending if they committed a major crime, they should be deported. And the president was left in his, President Obama, I think, did a heck of a job. To compare him to what this guy's doing is absolutely, I find, close to immoral. But the fact is that, look, immoral. Close to immoral. And close to immoral. I find close to immoral.
He's saying Donald Trump, for building the wall and having a secure border, is close to immoral. Did you catch that? Again, this is Joe Biden.
Close to immoral. But the fact is that, look, we should not be locking people up. We should be making sure we change the circumstance, as we did, why they would leave in the first place. And those who come seeking asylum, we should immediately have the capacity to seek asylum. We should seeking asylum. Seeking asylum. Seeking asylum. We should immediately have the capacity to absorb them. Immediately have the capacity to absorb them. Immediately have the capacity to absorb them. Keep them safe until they can be heard.
A 15-second, if you could, if you wish to answer. Should someone who is here without documents, and that is his only offense, should that person be deported?
That person should not be the focus of deportation.
And that is his only offense. Should that person be deported? And that is his only offense. Someone who is here without documents. 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 And that is his only offense. Should that person be deported?
That person should not be the focus of deportation. We should fundamentally change the way we deal with things.
So Joe Biden, when he ran in 2019 or in 2020, he said we should fundamentally change the system. I guess that means just let anybody and everything in the country. Of course, I just played you the news. Now, dogs, CDC said no dogs under 6 months old, only 6 months and under. Anyone over 6 months, the dogs no longer can come to the country or cross the border. But this doesn't sound what happened. Does anybody remember? If you can go back to 2009. Here is Mr. Obama. See what you think.
This is not going to be a free ride. It's not going to be some instant amnesty. What's going to happen is, it's not going to be some instant amnesty. It's not going to be some instant amnesty. It's not going to be some instant amnesty. What's going to happen is, you are going to pay a significant fine. You are going to learn English. You are going to go to the back of the line so that you don't get ahead of somebody who was in Mexico City applying legally. But after you've done these things over a certain period of time, you can earn your citizenship.
Now this is Obama in 2009. Okay? In 2009, basically saying you'll have to learn English. You can't jump in front. You'll have to get in the back of the line and follow all those. What's changed? What made Biden go? Because in 2009, I guess this was the acceptable way, but now it's just blown up. There's no lines. There's no process. Just everyone come and just take over the country. Again, this is Obama. Anyone that voted for Obama, and you're still proud of that fact, bless your heart.
A free ride. It's not going to be some instant amnesty. What's going to happen is, you are going to pay a significant fine. You are going to learn English. 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 You are going to go to the back.
Did you hear? This is clapping at a Democratic rally. when he says you're going to learn English, okay? The Democrats, now it wasn't a unanimous clapping, but they were clapping.
You are going to go to the back of the line so that you don't get ahead of somebody who was in Mexico City applying legally. But after you've done these things over a certain period of time, you can earn your citizenship. So that it's not...
You can earn your citizenship. You don't earn it by sneaking under barbed wire and running through the night. I realize there's some extreme circumstances. But the way the Biden administration, this guy, Obama, don't know if he was just saying it because it was right for the times, etc. Even Bill Clinton talked about, you need to have some border emphasis. But this is Obama. You almost can't believe a Democrat saying this these days. But this is, again, 2009.
Your citizenship. So that it's not something that is guaranteed or automatic. You've got to earn it. But over time, you give people an opportunity. Now, it only works, though, if you do all the pieces. I think the American people, they appreciate and believe in immigration. But they can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people pouring over the border without any kind of mechanism to control it. Believe in immigration. But they can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people pouring. Can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people. Can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people. Can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people pouring over the border without any kind of mechanism to control it. So we've got to deal with that at the same time as we deal in a humane fashion with folks who have put down roots here, have become our neighbors, have become our friends. They may have children who are U.S. citizens. That's the kind of comprehensive approach that we have to take.
You know what they say, fool me once, strike one, but fool me twice, strike three.
So that was Mr. Obama. I wanted you to hear it entirely. I replayed a few parts because it's hard to believe that was a Democrat saying that. That was in 2009. Okay? But Donald Trump said this in a rally. This was a couple of days ago. See what you think.
My new administration, I will seal the border, stop the invasion, and send Joe Biden's illegal aliens back home where they belong.
Now, what do you think of that? This is Trump's promise that he's going to seal the border and he's going to send them back.
On day one of my new administration, I will seal.
He says on day one, day numero uno.
On day one of my new administration, I will seal the border, stop the invasion, and send Joe Biden's illegal aliens back home where they belong.
I don't know what you think about that. There's a lot of folks that that doubt he can do that. There's no way he'll find them all. But if he were to seal the border, finish the wall, secure the border, and but here's the thing I think we're seeing. Presidents undo each other. When Trump came in, he said for every executive order he signed, he would unsign 5 more. And he freed up so much stuff for oil and coal and clean coal and natural gas. And remember, in 2018, we led the world for the first time in 75 years in energy production in those 3 areas because he took away all these stagnant. Biden comes in, he shuts down the Alaska pipeline that Trump opened, but he helped open the German-Russia pipeline and made Russia filthy rich, didn't have the money to attack the Ukraine. Does that make sense? Anyway, got to think through some of these things. But some of you say, why don't you ever play a song kind of making fun of Trump? You always play him making fun of Biden. Well, here's one. See if you like it. This is kind of taking a little fun at Donald Trump.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the next president of the United States, Donald Trump.
Do you want to build a wall? Let's make a plan today. Don't want to see them anymore. We'll have a door, but lock it every day. It will cost a lot of money, but that's fine. We'll get Mexico to pay. Do you want to build a wall?
I'm not going to pay for that.
Wait a minute. Wait. Wait. Do you want to build a wall? A lot of people think I can't. I'll get it up and finish fast. Just ask Melania.
Yes, my husband is quick.
I will make things happen. I will build a wall. And then we will have a literal crime rave.
Making fun of Donald Trump. Anyway, that's what they're doing. But we'll see. Well, this is the Patriot Pastor Macil Duncan. We'll be back. I'm going to take a quick news break here, and you guys just hang in there. This is the PragerU news update on inconvenient truth about a certain political party.
When you think about racial equality and civil rights, which political party comes to mind? The Republicans or the Democrats? Most people would probably say the Democrats, but this answer is incorrect. Since its founding in 1829, the Democratic Party has fought against every major civil rights initiative and has a long history of discrimination. The Democratic Party defended slavery, started the Civil War, opposed Reconstruction, founded the Ku Klux Klan, imposed segregation, perpetrated lynchings, and fought against the Civil Rights Acts of the 1950s and 1960s. In contrast, the Republican Party was founded in 1854 as an anti-slavery party. Its mission was to stop the spread of slavery into the new Western territories with the aim of abolishing it entirely. This effort, however, was dealt a major blow by the Supreme Court in the 1857 case Dred Scott versus Sandford. The court ruled that slaves aren't citizens, they're property. The 7 justices who voted in favor of slavery, all Democrats. The 2 justices who dissented, both Republicans. The slavery question was, of course, ultimately resolved by a bloody civil war. The commander-in-chief during that war was the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, the man who freed the slaves. 6 days after the Confederate Army surrendered, John Wilkes Booth, a Democrat, assassinated President Lincoln. Lincoln's vice president, a Democrat named Andrew Johnson, assumed the presidency. But Johnson adamantly opposed Lincoln's plan to integrate the newly freed slaves into the South's economic and social order. Johnson and the Democratic Party were unified in their opposition to the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment, which gave blacks citizenship, and the 15th Amendment, which gave blacks the vote. All 3 passed only because of universal Republican support. During the era of Reconstruction, federal troops stationed in the South helped secure rights for the newly freed slaves. Hundreds of black men were elected to Southern state legislatures as Republicans, and 22 black Republicans served in the U.S. Congress by 1900. The Democrats did not elect a black man to Congress until 1935. But after Reconstruction ended, when the federal troops went home, Democrats roared back into power in the South. They quickly reestablished white supremacy across the region with measures like black codes, laws that restricted the ability of blacks to own property and run businesses, and they imposed poll taxes and literacy tests used to subvert black citizens' right to vote. And how was all of this enforced? By terror, much of it instigated by the Ku Klux Klan, founded by a Democrat, Nathan Bedford Forrest. As historian Eric Foner, himself a Democrat, notes, in effect, the Klan was a military force serving the interests of the Democratic Party. President Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, shared many views with the Klan. He resegregated many federal agencies and even screened the first movie ever played at the White House, the racist film, The Birth of a Nation, originally entitled The Klansman. A few decades later, The only serious congressional opposition to the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964 came from Democrats. 80% of Republicans in Congress supported the bill, less than 70% of Democrats did. Democratic senators filibustered the bill for 75 days until Republicans mustered the few extra votes needed to break the logjam. And when all of their efforts to enslave blacks, keep them enslaved, and then keep them from voting had failed, the Democrats came up with a new strategy. If black people are going to vote, they might as well vote for Democrats, as President Lyndon Johnson was purported to have said about the Civil Rights Act. I'll have them voting Democrat for 200 years. So now, the Democratic Party prospers on the votes of the very people it has spent much of its history oppressing. Democrats falsely claim that the Republican Party is the villain, when in reality, it's the failed policies of the Democratic Party that have kept blacks down. Massive government welfare has decimated the black family. Opposition to school choice has kept them trapped in failing schools. Politically correct policing has left black neighborhoods defenseless against violent crime. So when you think about racial equality and civil rights, which political party should come to mind? I'm Carol Swain, professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt University for Prager University. Thank you.
Now, she is a professor at Vanderbilt University, as you heard. If you want to go online and look at Prager University or PragerU, it gives a lot of historical and lots of good things, for you to consider. 8 years ago, there was a petition for her to be suspended because of her outspoken views against the Democratic Party, because she is a woman of color. They just assume she should stay with the narrative that all folks of color should vote Democrat. And she's a very articulate, very smart lady, and stood her ground well. Well, I've got a couple of things for you as we get ready to go into the Big Pharma discussion here in the 4 o'clock hour. Check this out. One kit you need to declare independence from is Big Pharma and Big Government. This article is in the Gateway Pundit. He goes, if the COVID-19 pandemic taught us anything, it's that Big Pharma and Big Government want to keep you sick and reliant on them. And I've got to ask you to say something slowly under your breath with me. Food and Drug Administration. Who in the world would want to put drugs and food together in the same administration? Food and Drug Administration. Do you see now why you find so many additives? Now, for instance, I happen to have this health drink called Aspire. It's a health energy natural caffeine drink. No calories, no sugars, no carbs. Okay? It's got the ultra premium green tea, vitamin B5, B6, B12, C, ginger root extract, biotin, and niacin. So anyway, no, I'm not. They don't endorse me. I just thought I'd tell you this is something I found as you're looking for healthy options to drink. Zero fat. Sodium, it only has 3% per can. And total carbohydrate, 0. Sugars, 0. Now, protein is 0. Okay? But it is a fuzzy little drink if you like. It's got a good flavor. And it's got all these vitamins and stuff. And it does give you energy. You'll see me drink these a lot on the show because, being a pastor, running a food pantry, running a homeless ministry, and doing all that I've got to do, it's just sometimes you need the energy. But I think a lot of us are getting weary of Big Pharma. And I think that's something that a lot of folks are concerned with now, their health. They're wanting to know, hey, have we been lied to? Well, as we look at some of this, ex-CNN host Chris Cuomo vindicates anti-vaxxers in a shocking statement beyond the headlines. And this is in some of his recent interviews. The ex-CNN host Chris Cuomo offered a shocking testimony. I mean, this was a big shocker-roober. Him to be from CNN and so far left, this is a big shocker-roober. Check it out. His testimony recently on a PBD podcast, on which he is now a part, in an episode, he mentions how Contrary to popular belief, the mainstream media was wrong. Now, for someone that was considered part of the mainstream media and the narrative of that time about COVID, check this out. He said the mainstream media was wrong on its framing of the alternative solutions to COVID and their stance of the now infamous vaccine. What exactly did he say that was so shocking and so different from his tone while he was on CNN? This is interesting. So if you go and watch the interview, I'm not going to play it for you. It's very interesting. Let me skip on down to another one of his interviews. Disgraced ex-CNN anchor, this is on the Gateway Pundit, Chris Cuomo now admits to taking ivermectin daily, refuses to apologize for shaming people who didn't take the experimental shot. He won't apologize, but he admits that the mainstream media got it wrong. In a recent episode of the PBD podcast, hosted by Patrick Bet-David, along with the co-host Adam Shoshnick and Tom Ellsworth and Vincent Oshana, former CNN anchor Chris Cuomo made admissions about his health, his what he does for staying in shape, and the stance on the COVID-19 vaccines, and the liberals are probably going cray-cray over this. The episode saw Cuomo confront his past criticisms of vaccine skeptics. He now embraces a treatment he once scorned. You know, this is so good. During the discussion, one of the guys showed a resurfaced clip from 2021 in which Cuomo criticized Representative Byron Donalds for his decision not to get vaccinated against COVID-19. In the clip, Cuomo chastised a representative from Florida, and of course he's a GOP, and alleged neglecting public health responsibility. And here's the quote. "Everybody should know that about you, Byron Donalds. You are not telling people to get vaccinated. You are not pushing it. You're not saying it with the right choice. You're saying you're not doing it, and your family is not doing it. And you're leaving out the equation that you make other people sick as if it doesn't matter." Now, that's the whole thing I didn't get. If you take the shot and it's so good and it works, why would an unvaxxer like me put your health at risk? I thought the shot was supposed to be the protector, the if you will, the shield from COVID. How could an unvaxxer come in and affect you? The only thing we affected was your freaking pocketbook. Because since we wouldn't take your stupid shot, you couldn't charge us. I get a little sassy on this stuff because that really ticks me off how they put so many people, and my parents for one, in a scare tactic. I don't like it when you scare old people and young people. Scarf Lady. Do you guys remember Scarf Lady? Dr. Deborah Birx now says thousands of Americans could be vaccine injured by the COVID shot. What, Rocky? You mean the lady that stood before the country with Dr. Fauci, who, where's Dr. Fauci lately? Haven't seen him in a while. Oh, I know, Q folks, he's off in Gitmo. He's been assassinated or he's in a prison cell. I gotta see it to believe it. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna go down fantasy road with you on that one. But Deborah Birx, the former White House coronavirus response coordinator who destroyed the country along with Dr. Anthony Fauci, suggested that thousands of Americans could be suffering from vaccine-related injuries due to the experimental COVID-19 drug. Cuomo opened the discussion with Birx by addressing AstraZeneca's withdrawal of its COVID-19 vaccine from the U.S. market because they're getting sued. AstraZeneca made a headline today pulling the vaccine. They say it's because the demand curve isn't there anymore. Others suggest due to the inferiority of their product. What's your take? Here's Dr. Birx. They were very effective for what they were supposed to be used for, which was preventing severe disease and hospitalization or deaths. That's what the vaccines were studied to do in this country, and that's what they did, Birx answered. This is a blatant lie. The COVID-19 vaccines were initially presented to the public as a way to provide immunity and stop the spread of the virus. However, as vaccinated individuals continued to contract COVID-19, it became apparent that the vaccines weren't producing any immunity as expected. Not to mention, when you're told to stay inside, you get no vitamin D3 from the sun. You stay inside, you're not breathing fresh air for days at a time. You're breathing recycled air with no true sunlight. It affects your immunity, my friend. If you ever notice hospitals have big windows to let sunshine in, that's why, sunshine face, okay? Sunshine's good for you. In September 2021, almost a year after the emergency use authorization approval, the CDC altered its definition of vaccines and vaccinations. After the COVID-19 vaccines were developed and studied, a definition of vaccines was clear. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, a vaccine was defined as a product that stimulates a person's immune system to produce immunity to a specific disease, protecting the person from that disease. Vaccination was defined as an act of introducing a vaccine, etc., etc. Now, if you remember, Operation Warp Speed was Donald Trump's thing. I think he still needs to give an explanation. And I think as we get closer to the campaign, the Democrats are going to whip this back around and beat him over the head with it. Because the thing he can't get away from, he pushed the Operation Warp Speed. He also pushed that the big pharma could not be sued because they're putting it out so fast. But do you guys remember the Hollywood thing, take the jab? They wouldn't use the term vaccine. They would just call it the jab. They had all these nicknames, but they didn't want to call it the jab because they said if it ever went to court, which it is now, when they call it a vaccine, that puts them more liable, savvy? But when you have John Legend and all these superstars, and you have Clooney and these actors, rolling up their sleeve, take the jab, okay? All these folks, remember Kelsey, and his girlfriend, what's the name of that mop? Oh, Swift. It's a Swifter. Yeah, remember that they were all taking the shot. Don't you find that interesting? Anyone they put in front of your face a zillion times was taking the shot. Anyway, I'm not big impressed with Big Pharma, but here's the deal. Pfizer now has to settle 10,000 lawsuits over the drug linked to cancer. 10,000 lawsuits, and they're mounting. Okay, costing the company millions. If you feel you took the Pfizer shot and have any side effects, there are multiple lawsuits you can join, and you'll get a portion of the reward once it's settled. So, big pharma giant Pfizer confirmed on Wednesday it will settle more than 10,000 lawsuits over allegations that the company failed to warn people about possible cancer risk caused by their Xanax product. Zantac is the company's once popular anti-heartburn medication. That's also going along with the vaccine and the NDMA. Anyway, all these things are being brought together, and there's a 10,000 plus lawsuits against them. And Pfizer is trying to settle out of court because if it goes to court, they know they will lose. This is, of course, the opinion of the guy writing the article. So anyway, I think I've covered that. I'm not a big fan of the Pfizers and all these big pharma things. You guys can, if you take it, some of you swear by it. I know. I've got friends. Actually, I lost a good friend. We were good friends in high school. He still won't talk to me because I made fun of the vaccines. Now, even though I've been proven right, he won't admit it. But that's okay. And I'm not one to hold a grudge or say I told you so, even though I told you so. More and more is coming out that stuff it didn't do what we were told it was going to do. And so with that said, I think a lot of folks are saying, hey, I think we're going to have to back the truck up and realize, hey, there's some problems here. And in so doing, we've got to have a reality moment. I've got something to bring to your attention. This is kind of icky yucky, but Arkansas woman pleads guilty. You're not going to believe what she pled guilty to. Stealing a fetus and a body parts from corpses and selling them on Facebook. I kid you not. An Arkansas woman pleads guilty to stealing a fetus and body parts from corpses and selling them on Facebook. This is so egregious. The guy that was the purchaser, he has half his face tattooed and one of his eyes is, and he's got, I mean, if there's a dude that looks like he came from hell, that dude looks like he did. Candace Chapman Scott, 37, was working at a mortuary where she stole at least 24 boxes of human body parts from medical school cadavers. On Thursday, Scott pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit mail fraud and 1 count of interstate transportation of stolen property. The charges stem from Scott selling 24 boxes of human remains to Jeremy Pauley, that's the dude that looks like the devil, of Pennsylvania, for $11,000. The body parts included fetuses, brains, hearts, lungs, genitalia, large pieces of skin, and more. Scott reportedly said Pauley, the fetus, at a discount, saying he's not in great shape. Anyway, according to the report, Pauley was previously pled guilty to charges related to the theft and sale of body parts from humans, both at the Arkansas and etc. But he also got some from the Harvard Medical School. Oh, so Harvard tied into this as well as all the other shenanigans. Interesting stuff. I don't know about you. That's creepy. I don't know, people that want to do that kind of stuff. Oh. Well, we've got an update. You may have heard this already, but House Speaker Mike Johnson survives the coup.
Following weeks of threats, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene called for a vote to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson Wednesday over concerns about his leadership. Within minutes, the motion was decisively rejected, with most Republicans joining Democrats in a 359-43 vote. 11 Republicans voted against tabling Greene's resolution. Greene said she was not surprised by the vote and would not say whether she would plan to try to remove Johnson again in the future. Johnson joked with reporters, calling it just another Wednesday on Capitol Hill. The speaker thanked his colleagues for their support and described Greene's efforts to remove him as misguided.
Hopefully, this is the end of the personality politics and the frivolous character assassination that has defined the 118th Congress. It's regrettable. It's not who we are as Americans, and we're better than this. We need to get beyond it.
So House Speaker Mike Johnson survives the attempt to oust him. And what was interesting is 43 Republicans did vote with Marjorie Taylor Greene. That was bigger than I thought she would get. But he got unanimous Democrat support and most of the Republicans. So anyway, what will they do? You got to ask yourself, is there a reason that they continue to do things they know won't win? And then they slip in and do some of these other things, and I don't know. The election's coming up, and a lot of folks have different views about the election. And with the different court trials that Mr. Trump's going through, many folks are sensing that they're losing ground greatly. The Fulton County case right now is under appeal. And through that appeal process, because the bottom line is this, when McAfee, I think that was his name, said that you had to get rid of Wade, but Fannie Willis could stay on the case, the ultimate awesome illustration someone came up with, I don't know who, said, so if you have 2 bank robbers in the vault, one can go home, but one has to go to jail? That doesn't make sense. They're both guilty of the same thing. So for them to ask Wade to leave the case, he obviously perjured himself. the funds were exorbitant and doesn't sound like they were legit. All the different things that you could go down the list, and he lied on, I think, at least 5 occasions. And then you're allowing Fani Willis to stay on the case. See, this is where the Democrats messed up, in my opinion. But I'm going to prove a point. What they should have done, in my opinion, Fani, pull her in a room, say, Fani, you're getting too much bad press. You're going to have to willfully step down from the case, you and Loverboy, okay? We'll get it reassigned to another DA in Georgia. But no, she wants her 15 minutes of fame. But see, here's the deal. The thing that came out, because Mr. Wade, when he got this big contract from Fannie the Wanny, it gave him a lot of money. So he got a little anxious, and so he filed for divorce from his wife. If you guys remember, go do the timeline. Well, his wife's getting divorced, realizing, man, my husband's been having an affair with the woman he works with. That's not the first time that's happened, and won't be the last. But somebody talked her into fighting back. He froze all their accounts and tried to bully her. And she went down to Texas, I think, to be with one of her parents. And they ended up dying through the process because it gave them all the publicity. She came back fighting, and she demanded court records. Well, shabam bam, when she got the court records, they found out that he had been charging everything he had done. So there's court records of him being in D.C. with Fannie the Wanny at meetings with Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, Lolita James, all the superstars of the Democrats going after Donald Trump. So this has put a big shadow. Again, if Fannie the Wanny and Wade Loverboy had just faded out, stepped down when it was getting bad, this wouldn't have come out. But because of their arrogance, because of their I've got to be in the middle of this and you will not take me down mentality. I mean, she's King Konging it, man. She's climbing the Eiffel Tower, or not the Eiffel Tower, the Empire State Building. She's banging her chest, daring anybody to take her down. If you've watched King Kong eventually goes down. And so I think eventually she's going down. And the thing about Fannie, I think, too, she's in a re-election. And you may have heard she didn't show up for the debate the other night. So they put an empty podium. Now, it was a man of color and a lady of color running the debate, and the man of color. So they mocked her and had an empty podium and let the guy go ahead and answer all the questions. And they would say, Fannie Willis, what's your response? And it was silence. They said, they just pretty much humiliated her, in my opinion, amongst her voting bloc. So with all that said, that case in Fulton, then you got the one up in New York. And Stormy Daniels is proven pretty much to be the sleaze that we all knew she was. I mean, hey, professional porn star, what did you expect? But the thing that's not sitting well with them is Michael Cohen is going on TikTok and doing all this stuff, claiming he's now going to run for Congress. He has been convicted of perjury in court. He is a disgrace. Anyone that would vote for him, you just got to completely be a loser. Well, they've got all this going on, and the New York case looks like they're losing a lot of ground there. The case that Lolita James brought, you remember, and tried to lock down Trump Tower, they were just going to lock it down. That was a huge failure because when it went to appeals, they significantly reduced the payment while it's going through the appeal process, and through that he didn't he made Truth Social go public. He doubled his wealth in one day. He went from $3-something billion to worth over $6 billion. So you got to say, where are they getting Donald Trump? Really nowhere. His polls climb. Every time he walks the street of New York, they chant USA, USA, Trump, Trump, Trump. So don't be too surprised. In my opinion, the Jack Smith, the other one down in Florida, has been suspended indefinitely. That case, now this is the fourth one now. Don't forget there's 4. That case is because he had to admit under oath he could not guarantee that the evidence was not tampered with. They have uncovered an FBI phone call from the FBI to CIA, an agent, and it's been released on Gateway Pundit. And it's interesting. Interesting. I'll talk about it when we come back.
The Miss USA organization is facing its second major resignation this week. Miss Teen USA, who hails from New Jersey, is also giving back her crown just 2 days after Miss USA announced she's stepping down. The resignations are raising questions about how the organization is being run and allegations of a toxic environment. ABC's Andrew Dimbert has more.
New Jersey!
After only 7 months, Miss Teen USA 2023 is relinquishing her crown. 17-year-old Uma Sofia Srivastava stepping away from the role, saying, "I find that my personal values no longer fully align with the direction of the organization." The 11th grader announcing she'll focus instead on her advocacy for education and acceptance.
I didn't always feel accepted, which is why I wrote my children's book, The White Jaguar, and I was able to make it multilingual to represent my cultures. And I want to share the message to empower people to embrace what makes them unique.
Her announcement comes just 2 days after Miss USA, Noelia Voigt, gave up her crown, citing her mental health. Voigt releasing a statement on Instagram, her eagle-eyed followers spotting a hidden message. The first letters of each sentence spells, "I am silenced." Voigt's former social media director spoke out on Good Morning America, describing a toxic environment at the Miss USA organization, which oversees both Miss USA and Miss Teen USA.
It was a series of aggressive behaviors towards the title holders and also the employees.
The Miss USA organization calls the accusations false, saying Miss USA is committed to fostering a safe, inclusive, and supportive environment. As for the departing Miss Teen USA, she did not elaborate on her claims about the organization's values. Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
Boar's Head has crafted
Green called for a vote to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson Wednesday over concerns about his leadership. Within minutes, the motion was decisively rejected, with most Republicans joining Democrats in a 359-43 vote. 11 Republicans voted against tabling Green's resolution. Green said she was not surprised by the vote and would not say whether she would plan to try to remove Johnson again in the future. Johnson joked with reporters, calling it just another Wednesday on Capitol Hill. The speaker thanked his colleagues for their support and described Green's efforts to remove him as misguided.
Hopefully, this is the end of the personality politics and the frivolous character assassination that has defined the 118th Congress. It's regrettable. It's not who we are as Americans, and we're better than this. We need to get beyond it.
Jewish parents, teachers, and students
and
are
the failed
complaining
attempt to
about
oust House
instances
Speaker
of
Mike Johnson.
anti-Semitism at primary and secondary schools. The House Education Committee questioned the heads of several public school districts about their offenses and their response yesterday. Lori Johnson reports.
A congressional committee grilled the leaders of 3 public K-12 school districts over their response to an alarming rise in acts of anti-Semitism.
It accused the New York City school commissioner of going easy on offenders, like a teacher who posted this.
This is highlighting a Hamas paraglider who slaughtered Jews.
And we took action.
What was the action?
I cannot give you the specifics on the action that was taken.
Yes, you can. You're in front of Congress. What is the action?
I cannot give you this on the specific employee, on this specific employee.
That's unacceptable.
Before the hearing, Jewish students and teachers told stories about administrators ignoring anti-Semitic protests.
Some students in the crowd shouted comments like, "Bring back Hitler," and "kill all the Jews."
And violence.
The ugly cancer that is Jew hatred is not only present within our own school walls, but authorized.
Carla Silvestri with Montgomery County, Maryland schools just outside Washington, D.C., admitted teachers who openly target Jews are still employed.
You're teaching hatred and we're going to get rid of you. Has that happened?
We have taken disciplinary action, yes.
Have you fired anybody?
No.
Berkeley, California's superintendent told lawmakers she's fine with her district's policy of teaching students the battle cry, calling for Israel's destruction.
One of the slides in this curriculum said, for some Palestinians, from the river to the sea is a call for freedom and peace. It then cited as support a quote from Congresswoman Tlaib, who was censured by this body in a bipartisan vote. Do you think that's an appropriate thing to have on a slide for students?
What was on the slide again? Say it again, please.
It said, for some Palestinians, from the river to the sea is a call for freedom and peace. Do you think that's appropriate?
So we definitely believe that it's important to expose our students to a diversity of ideas and perspectives. And if it was presented as a perspective, I do think it's appropriate.
Lawmakers cited complaints of anti-Semitism reaching as young as the 2nd grade. But the educators testifying told the lawmakers they're pushing back on anti-Semitism, fighting it with education and, when needed, discipline. Last year, the presidents of 4 elite universities went before a similar House committee investigating anti-Semitism, which precipitated 2 of them losing their jobs.
And I remember that. If you remember, Stefanik led the charge in that, and over 3 billion views. So that was pretty amazing. This is Macil Duncan. Welcome back to the Macil Duncan Show here at the Destiny Media 96.9 FM. Getting used to that. And here in Chattanooga. Also, we're on USA Heartbeat and Street Level America, taking us coast to coast and into Mexico and Canada. Thanks for listening to the show, my friends. Interesting stuff here. Climate change issues. How about this? Fewer Americans see climate change as a serious problem after 3 years of the Biden administration. Evidently, Joe is doing a great job of ruining the green energy deal. Fewer people see climate change as a serious problem today compared to 3 years ago, according to a new poll. This is easy to understand. Climate change is a luxury problem. People tend to care less about an issue like climate change when they're constantly worried about how they're going to put food on the table, pay their mortgage, or put gas in the car. And that's pretty understandable. So for the last 3 years under the Biden and Democrats, they have rushed to push as many climate change related policies as possible. As Americans across the country suffered with much more urgent problems, like the border is one that's got a lot of our attention, fewer Americans today see climate change as a very serious problem than they did 3 years ago, as I said. The Monmouth University poll, conducted on April 18th through the 22nd, shows a 10% decline in Americans who say climate change is very serious. And that's falling from 56% in 2021 to now 46%. And the decline was less steep overall, with 66% describing climate change as a problem that's very serious to or somewhat serious. And that's down from 2021 from 70%. So in all the categories that it's very serious, somewhat serious, or not at all. Anyway, it just continues to drop. So Patrick Murray, director of the independent Monmouth University Polling Institute, attributed this trend to a decline in urgency among Americans. Now, I'll put my 2 cents in. I think what you're also seeing is people, the EVs aren't selling. The electric cars aren't selling. Okay? Ford is just, they're telling you, they're just not selling. And even when Biden first put in a $5,000, then he upped it an $8,000 rebate for your first EV purchase, people are realizing, hey, if I buy this electric car, which is almost the price of a house, I mean, at least what a house used to be, and then after 3 years, I've got to replace the battery. A Chevy Cobalt battery down in Florida, they posted online the invoice, $21,000. That used to be a pretty decent used car. So you're telling me you've got to pay, close to 80 grand, 80,000 plus for a Tesla or one of these cars, but in possibly 3 years or so, you're going to have to pay for a new battery, which is another 20 grand. A lot of folks are saying that's $100,000 technically that you've got to somehow fork up over the next 3 to 4 years. Who wants to drive that unless you're a super rich person? The other thing that's backfiring is there's just not enough charging stations across the country if you do any kind of traveling at all. Not to mention that as well, they're starting to do a realistic study. You get your average American that sits home at night and they're charging their phones, their laptop or running computer, their other electrical, normal uses at their home, not to mention, air conditioner, heat. On top of that, I've got to plug up the car for eight hours so I can drive it for 5 hours. The other thing that came out, an engineer friend of mine at Volkswagen said, what they don't tell folks is the average test driver for the EV cars is about 150 pounds. So $150. Now, I'm a little more than that. Let's just say I'm 200 plus. Okay. He said the more weight you put in, the more energy it takes to do the battery. He goes, the other thing they don't tell you when they give the supposed driving distances per battery, they're not telling you that's one person. Put two people, say 200 pounds each, throw in some luggage and a dog in the back. He goes, and your distance is going to be significantly challenged. So they say you can go, I'm just saying, 100 miles. You put two people in, throw a dog and some luggage in, you're probably down to 50 miles. I know that's not up to standard, but just bear with the illustration. What's happening is people are wising up. They're not as dumb as the politicians think they are. And so as that's happening, the EV and the climate thing is not happening. Well, check what else is not going to happen. And I was real happy with this. The Brits said no to the World Health Organization. See, people are wising up to this global craziness. Peter Sweden said this, it's happening. The Britons refused to sign the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty. And this was something I brought y'all's attention that's being pushed. And they've got several nations that have signed this. This basically says if the World Health Organization says there's another COVID-19, COVID-20, or shabam-bam, thank you, man, flu, and they want to shut the world down, what they're getting countries to do is sign over their sovereignty to the World Health Organization. And therefore, they can override or supersede any national laws, such as the Constitution and the Bill of Rights of the United States. Well, what happened here in America is Louisiana was the first. The state of Louisiana put together their own law, and it passed almost unanimously to say the state of Louisiana will only adhere to the laws of the United States. They will not. And Louisiana's got some liberal parts like New Orleans. They will not adhere to a foreign global dictate that would override. So when you started having states, and I believe Alabama, Tennessee, and others are putting those out, this is catching a lot of folks. So you've got right now Britain saying no. So in a recent report, the latest draft of the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty, they watered it down to try to get some of them signed on. They said, no, we're not signing that one either. So the Brits have said they're not going to sign any of their sovereignty away to some pandemic treaty, and because they want to keep their sovereignty. So how about that? Way to go, Britain. I'm glad to hear that the others are standing up. Now, if Britain stands up to them, you would hope that we would have that standing up the same with Mr. Biden, but that will remain to be seen. RFK Jr. just announced full-term abortions are okay. I think a lot of folks that were leaning his way, maybe that's going to be a deal breaker. The Central of America is not for full-term abortion. So I think this is the vice president that's funding his campaign. She's a very left progressive, far to the left. I think she's wrote a check that got his attention and said, hey, you want any more money? You better agree with me, and this is going to cost him. I believe this now will take Kennedy, any threat he had of being a spoiler, this is probably going to take him a lot of his creds away from the middle ground anyway. We'll see. Well, this is the Patriot Pastor Macil Duncan. We'll be back after the break. We're coming up on top of the hour. For the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to talk about the economy when we come back. And the interesting thing about the economy that might shock you, it might not, is that there is prices increasing in fast food. And you're not going to believe some of the explanations when we come back. As we get ready to go to break, don't forget my book, Move Your Mountains, Learn the Journey of Faith That Can Overcome. You can purchase my book at Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Books A Million, wherever you buy your online books. Move Your Mountains, Learn the Journey of Faith That Can Overcome by Macil Duncan. And I just put it out last of October, 1st of November of 2023. So it's not been out long. Please get a copy, Move Your Mountains, and I'd appreciate that. As we go to the top of the hour, we got a couple of things we'll run for you, and one is the new movie Civil War has been out now since the middle of April, and it's catching the attention of the people. Here's the trailer as we go to the break.
The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
The three-term president assures the uprising will be dealt with swiftly.
Let me know if you want to try anything on.
I guess aware there's like a pretty huge civil war going on all across America.
We just try to stay out. With what we see on the news, seems like it's for the best.
Citizens of America, the so-called Western forces of Texas and California have suffered a very great defeat at the hands of the United States military.
Mr. President, do you regret the use of airstrikes against American citizens?
We're moving to D.C. today.
We need to go down there.
They shoot journalists on sight in the Capitol.
Every instinct in me says this is death.
What?
Every time I survived a war zone, I thought I was sending a warning home. Don't do this. But here we are.
There's some kind of misunderstanding here. What? Well, you're American, okay? Okay. What kind of American are you? You don't know?
The Western forces will reach the White House on July 4th. Oh my God.
Get in the car! Get in the car!
Move, move, move!
We're gonna hang back.
I'm not hanging back.
One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go, 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 go!
God bless America.
In an effort to prevent the spread of rabies, the CDC is putting new restrictions on dogs coming into the U.S. from other countries. Starting August 1st, all dogs entering the nation must be at least 6 months old and microchipped, while dogs coming from countries where rabies is common must be vaccinated. The new regulations will go into effect after a temporary order from 2021 expires. That order suspended bringing in canines from more than 100 countries where rabies is still a problem. The safeguards use the age of 6 months for a threshold because that's the age dogs can first be vaccinated. Having a microchip under the skin allows officials to scan and verify a rabies vaccination. The microchip also shows the completed CDC import form. CDC regulations haven't been updated since 1956. The change comes as more people travel internationally with pets. There are also many rescue groups and breeders located outside of the U.S. The type of rabies that traditionally spreads in dogs was eliminated in the U.S. through vaccination in the 1970s. Since 2015, only 4 dogs with rabies were identified entering the country. And CDC officials were reportedly seeing an increase in incomplete or fake rabies vaccination certificates. The move doesn't come without criticism. Animal welfare advocate Jennifer Skiff told the Associated Press diplomats and military personnel often have trouble meeting the requirements, forcing them to leave their dogs behind. She called the new rules warrantless and too costly. For more stories like this,
Welcome back. That was some news breaks, and in case you hadn't heard, we've also got an update you may have heard. Miss Teen USA has stepped down. Right after the Miss America, the Miss USA stepped down about 48 hours ago. Now Miss USA has stepped down, and I was reading this. This is CNN News. It says Miss Teen USA steps down just days after Miss USA resignation. This has got a lot of folks concerned that they both stepped down so closely. So the Miss Teen USA resigned Wednesday, sending further shock waves through the pageant community just days after the Miss USA said she stepped down due to mental health issues, and May being Mental Health Month, they thought, okay, but now to have this other young lady step down just 48 hours later, and Miss Teen USA says her reason for stepping down is her personal values no longer fully align with the direction of the organization. And so keep them in your prayers. Here is an update from ABC News. See what you think.
The Miss USA organization is facing its second major resignation this week. Miss Teen USA, who hails from New Jersey, is also giving back her crown just 2 days after Miss USA announced she's stepping down. The resignations are raising questions about how the organization is being run and allegations of a toxic environment. ABC's Andrew Dimbert has more.
New Jersey!
After only 7 months, Miss Teen USA 2023 is relinquishing her crown. 17-year-old Uma Sofia Servastava stepping away from the role, saying, "I find that my personal values no longer fully align with the direction of the organization." The 11th grader announcing she'll focus instead on her advocacy for education and acceptance.
I didn't always feel accepted, which is why I wrote my children's book, The White Jaguar, and I was able to make it multilingual to represent my cultures. And I want to share the message to empower people to embrace what makes them unique.
Her announcement comes just 2 days after Miss USA, Noelia Voigt, gave up her crown, citing her mental health. Voigt releasing a statement on Instagram, her eagle-eyed followers spotting a hidden message. The first letters of each sentence spells, "I am silenced." Hidden message. The first letters of each sentence spells, "I am silenced." Spotting a hidden message. The first letters of each sentence spells, "I am silenced." Voigt's former social media director spoke out on Good Morning America, describing a toxic environment at the Miss USA organization, which oversees both Miss USA and Miss Teen USA.
It was a series of aggressive behaviors towards the title holders and also the employees.
The Miss USA organization calls the accusations false, saying Miss USA is committed to fostering a safe, inclusive, and supportive environment.
Well, it's sad, sad, sad. And so just keep that all in your prayers, because nobody likes to see anyone go through tough times like that. So for 2 ladies to step down within 48 hours, that probably there needs to be an investigation. Make sure it's okay. Well, have you guys been noticing that your money isn't the same as it used to be? Well, former Fed president talks about inflation, and I think we all could get some wisdom from this. See what you think.
We've been in a will they, won't they cycle with the Federal Reserve all year. Of course, I'm talking about cutting interest rates. At the start of 2024, markets expected 6 cuts this year, but inflation's not budging, and now any cuts at all are in question. I want to bring in former Kansas City Fed President Thomas Honig. Tom, Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari just said that the Fed may need to hold rates where they are all year. For you, what data would you need to see to justify cutting rates?
I don't think that they will be or should be easing rates this year. If you think about it for a moment, The, the consensus is building among economists, it's not universal yet, that the real rate of equilibrium rate of interest for policy, the real rate without inflation, is around 2%. It's risen from what they used to think was less than 1% to closer to 2%. And that's because fiscal policy has been very strong, the economy has been very strong, the labor market has been very strong. So 2% is the new, what I'll call equilibrium rate. And if that's the case, if you were wanting to have 2% inflation, your rate over the long term would be different. But right now, the nominal policy rate, if I'm making sense, the nominal policy rate is 5%. Policy rate is 5%. Policy rate is 5%. Policy rate is 5%. And inflation is 3%. So the real rate is 2%. So in a sense, we're in a, what I'll refer to as an unstable equilibrium, because it is 3%. So the real rate is 2%. So in a sense, we're in a, what I'll refer to as an unstable equilibrium, in a, what I'll refer to as an unstable equilibrium, because at this level, at the current level of 5%, 5.3% Fed funds rate, nominal policy rate, we're in a situation where inflation should stay around 3%. So if the
So that's the interesting thing. Now here's another thing. Biden says, "Don't blame me on the rise in inflation."
So I'm heading off to Philadelphia, and if you want to ask me a question about the economy, but I'm not going to answer any question about anything else because you never will cover this.
Mr. President, why did you decide to postpone Secretary Blinken's trip? Take any blame for inflation, Mr. President?
Am I taking blame for inflation? No.
Correct. Why not?
Because it was already there when I got here, man. Remember what the economy was like when I got here? Jobs were hemorrhaging. Inflation was rising. We weren't manufacturing a damn thing here. We were in real economic difficulty. That's why I don't. Thank you.
Mr. President,
So can you believe that Biden says we weren't manufacturing anything, and he won't take any responsibility for inflation? That's awful rich. But let me ask you this: have you been to fast food lately? I remember I went to Arby's the other day, and I just got the normal, roast beef with cheddar cheese meal deal, small fry, small drink. And that'll be $13.65, sir. And I thought, shabam, that used to be like 2 meals. My wife and I stopped when we were on a trip a few weeks ago at a Wendy's. Went into a Wendy's and got just the single with cheese. She got, a single with cheese, small fries, small drink, and we got 2 small Frosties. $28 and some change. What is going on? I think a lot of folks are saying that. And why fast food has gotten so expensive.
Just $1? You did your thing, dog.
Remember the dollar menu? Well, you may be hard-pressed to find any fast food item that actually costs $1 anymore.
$17 for 3 Filet-O-Fishes at McDonald's? Are you kidding me?
I don't have the money to buy fast food anymore.
Don't you just miss the days when fast food was actually cheap?
When looking at fast food menus nationally, here are the average prices for fries from McDonald's, a Happy Meal, and a burger combo from Burger King. But I paid even more than that. Here are the prices at fast food locations by the NBC offices in Midtown Manhattan.
Broadly speaking, sales are performing much stronger than foot traffic, and that's due in part to higher prices.
So the consumer price index, that's the thing. It's measuring a lot of this, and I think a lot of folks are sensing, hey, this is a lot more than I expected. Because you start seeing this, and the consumer price index is showing a 24% increase. That's a lot. Now Biden may say he's not responsible, but it's happening on your watch, sir. And a lot of folks are concerned about this. And rightfully so. And some are concerned about the housing and other expenses, too. This is CBN News giving a little bit input. See what you think about their take on this.
Reflect higher housing costs, energy costs,
along with the price of food, which also contributed to inflation. A survey shows Americans of different racial backgrounds basically agree the government should prioritize economy and foreign policy issues this election year. For Megan Cherry in Temple Terrace, Florida, feeding a family of 6 means cutting what makes it into the grocery cart.
So things that aren't necessary for meals are kind of getting cut out.
And I think a lot of us are doing that. You go to the store, you're saying, I'd like to have that and that, but I'm going to have to do without that. My wife and I, we like coffee creamer, for instance. And so, I'm a big Dunkin' Donut coffee guy. I love that, but Folgers is cheaper. So we're going back to Folgers. And then you look around for coffee creamer. You buy the knockoff brands as best you can, but you go to Aldi to get certain things. Like, for instance, if you like sharp cheese, Aldi's is $2 cheaper than Walmart and Publix and the other places. But then if you go to Publix and you buy 5 meats, you get the discount. You learn how. It's like the old days of coupon shopping. People are finding ways to cut the corners. I was even talking to a guy the other day. We were talking how when you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you're using less peanut butter or less mayonnaise. Everybody's making everything stretch, which may be good for our health, but the financial stress it's putting on people. When finances get tight, people can become very emotionally and if not spiritually depleted, and it can play a psyche issue, and our prayer is that won't happen. And so if you know of someone that's struggling, we have an absent food pantry, and we feed the hungry. I had the privilege of going to Ridgedale Baptist Church today and speaking to a breakfast group, and I appreciate those men and that dear lady that met, even though we had a bad storm and it probably cut the attendance down. But they asked me to talk about how we feed the hungry. And I'm going to tell you, when you go outside and just in your little world, it's hard. But if you'll join me and go downtown sometime and meet with the street people, once they know you're for real, I mean, they're very approachable. They're not bad people. They're just hurting people, if you can imagine. And when you go downtown and you help feed hungry people, veterans that are sleeping on the streets, it'll change your life. And the reason I'm saying that is because you go down and you see people that are literally eating out of garbage cans. And you're thinking, hey, what else can I bring for these people? Well, then next time you're in the store and you see grossly overpriced food, I'm thinking, how do these people on the streets, what little money they have, how do they afford even the basics? And if your group would like to do something, we'd love to have you make a donation. You can go online at www.appisonbaptist.com. Appisonbaptist.com, that's my church, of course. And anything you give to the Appison Food Pantry through our online giving, it all goes directly to feed the hungry. I promise you that. It takes 5 signatures to release funds. I made it hard so that no one can think, hey, Macil's out there buying himself something. No, I can't. I can be one of the 5 signatures. I cannot sign checks. I don't want to know. I leave that up to we have a great treasurer at our church, Ralph, and we have a great treasurer at the pantry, Linda. The 2 of them plus others have to sign all the paperwork. And I did that. It's slow to spend money, but it's very accurate. We have monthly reports. So if you'd like to do that, if you'd like to feed hungry in your area, get with some folks, develop a plan. Now, we're open 7 days a week, but we didn't start there. We started small and got bigger. Now we rent 2 old stores. We have to, of course, pay utilities. We buy food. We get food donated. And we have over 80 volunteers up there 7 days a week, either picking up food, organizing food, packing food, or giving out food. And we're grateful. And if you're in the Chattanooga area, come by the Appison Food Pantry, especially on a Friday. We give out food from 10 to 3. And the interesting thing I told the group today I spoke to is at 3 o'clock, the miracle that I get to witness every week is the shelves are just about empty. The refrigerators are empty. Most of the freezers. But by next Thursday, when we're pre-packing boxes, God fills them all up again. All the shelves, all the refrigerators, and the freezers. It's a small miracle I get to witness every week. And it encourages my faith and reminds me how big God is. Because, see, when you do it unto the least of these, you've done it under me, he tells us in Matthew 25. So be someone that helps others. And there may be someone hungry in your world. Now, some folks can hide it for a while, but there may be someone that's lost their job, maybe someone that's lost or had their hours cut, or their spouse has, and they're trying they don't want you to know how bad they got it. But there are warning signs. If you'll be smart and pray about it, invite people over for dinner. You know, find ways to just love on people. Leave groceries on their porch with a note if you're afraid they'll be too prideful. One thing that happens to me all the time as a pastor, someone will give me an envelope, say, hey, pastor, would you help this family over here? I know they don't want to be embarrassed. Just tell them someone is praying for them. And it's a joy to hand them envelopes with cash or a check or with a gift card. But we can all do something. Pray about it. See what God lays on your heart as you consider that. Well, you know, most Americans right now are concerned about the upcoming election. And I don't know what you think, but this is a new poll that says they're very concerned over the media's election night coverage. See if you agree with this report.
For the media, Election Day is their Super Bowl. News outlets often plan for it months, even years in advance. It's a critical night relaying results with the nation watching. But a new poll finds most Americans don't trust the media to do their job right on their biggest night of the year. A new Associated Press poll shows 53% of Americans are extremely or very concerned that news organizations will report misinformation or inaccurate results during the election. 30% are somewhat concerned. Nearly half of Americans also believe news outlets won't verify or fact-check information before airing it. 44% believe the news will be biased in how they announce results on November 5th. Only 1 in 10 say they have a great deal of confidence in the media come election night. It's not only the media's election coverage Americans are skeptical of. As a whole, Americans' trust in the news is at a historic low. 32% of Americans say they have confidence in the media. The only other time in history levels were so low was during the presidential election of 2016. While most Americans say they doubt they'll hear honest reporting on election night, interest in even tuning in is also down. According to an NBC poll, Americans who say they have a high interest in the 2024 election is at a 20-year low. 1/3 of adults under the age of 30 are following the presidential race, while 2/3 of older adults say they are. At SAN, we understand Americans' burnout on traditional media. We tell the news a little differently. There are known biases in your traditional networks. Fox leans right, CNN leans left. We don't try to hide media bias. We highlight it. So you get a clear picture on what perspective you're getting depending on where you saw a story.
Now that's Straight Arrow News. You want to check it out, Straight Arrow News. They got some great segments, and I use them for some of my segue points. But there's a satire site called Savade, and I'm just going to play one of theirs. This is about the earth-shaking win for Trump, and it plays the clips a few months back and the clips today, and how the media, and as I wanted to play that clip, people are losing interest and trust in the media. It's at an all-time low. Only 32% trust the media. And let me play. This is one reason why. Check out this clip. See what you think and evaluate yourself. Just a sec. I had to cue it up there.
Our country is going to hell.
Judge Eileen Cannon has now set a start date for the classified documents trial against President Trump for May 20th of next year. So this is well past the December start date Special Counsel Jack Smith's team had wanted, and smack in the middle of the 2024 presidential campaign.
What's your assessment of the strength of the case here against the former president?
Good morning, Willie. It's a strong case. In fact, it's a very strong case.
And Trump's former attorney, Ty Cobb, said on CNN last night he's dead with this case.
The case is so strong, you cannot imagine his getting away with this. I'm wearing a toast pin today because I think he's toast.
Most classified documents have put our troops at risk. It puts our intel agencies.
Everyone on the ground.
Lock them up.
Lock them up already.
I think this is, if anything's going to lock them up, it's this.
Well,
you know what we call that, Mika?
What?
That's called whistling past the graveyard. He's not looking forward to any of it. He's horrified. He's just talking big. The walls are closing in. As has been said before, this time, my God, look at all of it.
Here we go!
Breaking news, the judge in Trump's classified documents case has indefinitely postponed Trump's trial.
Say that one more time.
The judge in Trump's classified documents case
has indefinitely postponed Trump's trial.
Yes! Give me 10, Norton! Everyone can eat shit! A big bag of shit! I'm the greatest man in the world! Woo!
Judge Eileen Cannon, who was appointed by Trump himself and has issued a number of controversial rulings in his favor, saying it would be, quote, imprudent and, quote, inconsistent to set a trial date now. The case was supposed to go to trial this month. The decision all but guarantees that that is now not going to happen before the election.
What Jack Smith knows tonight, though, is that it's very possible that he may not be able to bring either one of his federal cases against former President Trump before the election. And the election is a significant point on the calendar because if Trump is reelected, he can have Jack Smith and both of his cases dismissed.
So I don't know what you think, but as you just go back and reflect all those cases and where they've come and where they are now, they look like they're losing steam. Now they had everyone believing Donald Trump was going to somehow face some jail time, etc. So far, it's like he's outclassing all of them, and it's just amazing to me. So with that said, I don't know what you guys think, but I believe Donald Trump. Now, I didn't have this view a few weeks ago. I think he not only beats the system, but I think this has put rocket fuel into his campaign, if you will. And I think people are backing him that maybe wouldn't back him before. And that one, they're backing him some, I think, out of sympathies because they don't like, no one likes to see anyone bullied. And the Democrats and the justice system has been obviously bullying Trump. So that didn't sit well with a lot of people. The other thing people don't like is the more they look at the comparison of Trump and Biden, even they don't like Trump as a person, they liked his policy. And as I told people before, I'm not voting for a pastor. I'm not voting for a BFF. I'm voting for a president who can do the best with the economy, the security of the nation, and represents my values best. And see, I think it's a no-brainer if you're a Christian, but it's just up to you. Now, with the upcoming election, Trump is asking oil companies to raise $1 billion and vows a rollback of Biden's green policies. See what you think of this. This is, again, the Straight Arrow News Network.
Trump wants back in the White House, and if reelected, he'll be leaving many of Biden's environmental policies at the door.
They spent $2 trillion, the Green New scam, the greatest scam in history.
He just needs big oil to pay up and help. According to the Washington Post, Trump has vowed to end the current rules around emissions aimed at promoting electric vehicles. This promise was reportedly made during a meeting last month with top U.S. oil executives. In exchange for the rollback, Trump wants these companies to raise $1 billion for his presidential campaign. As part of the former president's attempt to procure those funds, he also indicated a number of other concessions to big oil were on the table. This would include reversing the current freeze on permits for new liquefied natural gas exports, more lease auctions for oil drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, and a removal of drilling restrictions in the Alaskan Arctic. Trump allegedly called the billion-dollar proposal a, quote, deal because of the regulations the oil industry would avoid thanks to him. And it actually might just be a bargain for them. One oil industry exec is said to have complained about continued frustration with Biden's environmental policies, despite spending $400 million to lobby the White House in the last year alone. Jack Almer, Straight Arrow News.
So how about that? So Donald Trump has said, hey, help me raise $1 billion for this campaign, and I promise to do rollbacks, and you'll make that and some more. I guess that's called deal making, and campaign promises, I guess, is what you could label that as well. But I think it's very interesting, and we'll see how that plays out. I mentioned to you earlier, and I think this is going to be a major problem. RFK Jr. has now announced he's for full-term abortions, and he thinks they're okay. I think this is going to be really hard for him. And podcaster and former ESPN host Sage Steele began asking Kennedy on the Sage Steele show, should there be a limit, or are you saying all the way up to full term a woman has a right to have an abortion? And I don't think any woman through history has ever said, I'm going to have a baby. I'm going to get pregnant and carry that baby to the 8th month and term, and I'm going to terminate the pregnancy, Kennedy answered. I don't think anybody wants to do that, but it's her right. Don't think that was a good answer. That's a good little zippity-doo mover, but I don't think folks are going to buy that, Mr. Kennedy. I think that was going to cost you. I think it's going to cost you big time, because even people like me that were kind of liking some of the things you're saying, you're for killing babies, pal. Get out of my oxygen. I don't want to share oxygen with you. I do not. Federal appeals court rejects the dismissal request of Hunter Biden's gun case, and so his trial starts June 3rd. So Hunter Biden tried to appeal and get out of his gun case, and that's moving forward. It's in California, so I can't imagine he's going to get under too much harassment there. Religion is being misused. A bishop idiot, I call him, Bishop Williams, wrote this thing about what he's calling, Christian nationalists, basically saying if you're white and you love God and love America, that somehow you are a problem to the nation, and says that we use faith as a wedge. I don't agree with you, sir, and I think you're misrepresenting what you claim to be, a pastor, because when you start calling other people racist and throwing daggers, it's just never a good move. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, fewer Americans see climate change as a serious problem. After 3 years of the Biden's awful presidency, it is down now over 10%, and many folks are looking at it and saying, I'm concerned, and rightfully so, because, if you start looking at things such as that, you're saying that doesn't, it doesn't pass a smell test, if you will. And I brought this up the other day. I just thought I'd bring it up off and on this week. Wages, annual U.S. salary wages. This is something that a lot of folks maybe aren't realizing. But 16 to 19-year-olds are averaging $31,000 and some change. 20 to 24-year-old, it goes up to $37,000 average. 25 to 34-year-olds, it jumps up from 37 to 54. That's a big jump. 37 to 54. And then you peak out at 35 to 44. You jump again to 63. Okay? So 20 to 24 was 37, and then 25 to 34 jumps up to 54. So that's that's a big jump. That's almost 20 grand a year. And then from at the end of 35 to 44, it jumps to 63,908. So what that does, that's another 10. But here's the kicker: when you go 45 to 54, your salary only raises barely $900, and then it starts declining. 55 to 64 drops to 61, and 65 and older drops back to 57, and that's between the 34-year-olds and the 39-year-olds. Just something to keep in mind if you are looking for the national average. But the reason I say that is people can't afford housing. They're wanting you to buy an electric car, and the average, think about this. You're a new kid, 16 to 19. You make 31 grand a year, and they want you to buy an electric car that costs anywhere between 80 and 90 grand. And by the time you finance that sucker, I mean, you're going to be paying out in your retirement years. And even if you start making what they consider the decent money, 35 to 44 at 63,908, how do you buy a house? I mean, it's just unreal, the economy, the way it is right now. And I just think that these are the kind of questions that are going to be really pressed on the campaign trail as we get closer. Well, the different things are happening around the country. It needs prayer. We need to keep things in perspective and understand sometimes the media, the government, and there are foreign agitators that want to do things. But as Christians, we have a responsibility to stay true to who we are and to stand tall. So I encourage you to do that, my friends. This is Macil Duncan, the Patriot Pastor Show in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're also on 96.9 FM and the Destiny Media, as well as the USA Heartbeat Radio and Street Level America. If you miss my show, you can go to Street Level America, and it plays the show on a continual replay. Also, you can catch all my shows and catch all the backlogs. If you remember a particular show, you can look it up by topic or by date. Well, I hope you guys are having a great day. Mother's Day's coming up. Don't forget to get Mom something special. Okay? This is Macil Duncan, the Patriot Pastor. God bless, Godspeed. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.